So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, representative from New York 14, you may have heard of her. She went on, I'm not exactly sure what this was, but it was essentially a Q&A of some sort in which she touched on Biden's immigration policies, comparing them to the Trump administration. I think there's a complex conversation here based on her her comments. So let's take a listen.
First thing I want to say is that the fact that this keeps happening over and over and over again is a political failure by both parties.
If we just stop it there, nobody really has any problem with it. And then now we'll get to the part that people are sharing this for. And we should say, like, this was just posted by The Hill. And so, yeah, the context for it, it wasn't immediately clear to me.
She went on. I mean, I've seen other clips from this, and there was more Biden critique than what is shown in this video, I will say. So
both parties. And I want to be very clear about that, because I don't want to draw false equivalence. What is happening here is not the same as what happened during the Trump administration, where they took babies out of the arms of their mothers and deported their families and permanently traumatized these children, some of whom we don't know will ever be reunified with their family again.
So let's just stop there again, because she does create a false equivalence. Now, to the people that say, and there is a technical truth here, which is that Biden is not doing zero tolerance, which Trump did, which is like literally charging anybody who comes and separating the families there, right? But also that only lasted for several months in 2018 under Trump. Trump wasn't even doing that all the years, right? So like, and the real problem here is that the child separation is happening because of now Title 42, which is we're going to use COVID as an excuse to just to not deal with asylum seekers. We're just, and Trump started that, absolutely. And that's where this surge started, if you look at what started last year. But Biden is deciding to keep it going, and there's no justification. Go ahead.
Yeah, but she's referencing the initial child separation policy that wasn't Title 42, that was put in place by Jeff Sessions in the early era of the Trump administration, which didn't happen for as long as what you're saying. But yes, Biden is continuing the Title 42 in terms of COVID restrictions years later that Trump put in place.
Right. And that's a continuity. So like between Trump and Biden. So by her emphasizing immediately the differences between the two, she's obscuring that continuity, which is the most urgent one right now, which is that we need to start processing asylum seekers at the border and stop using COVID as an excuse to not deal with them.
Yes, but to be fair to that position, I think you're correct. But I think what she's referencing there is the initial Jeff Sessions era policy.
She is. Yeah, she definitely is. And it's right to say that Biden hasn't done that. But it's a bit misleading because also like that's not the entirety of even the Trump administration policy, right?
Yes.
It's like it's going after the worst of Trump administration, which is all bad, right?
Right. If we're looking at the past year, Biden is continuing the Title 42 separation policy, which basically ended asylum, which is illegal under U.S. and international law at the border, under the guise of protecting the country from COVID. And then Biden adjusted it so that, okay, we won't basically block all asylum seekers from coming into the country. If you're a child, you can come in. Mm-hmm. Effectively does separate children.
Right. And it's just like, it's this Title 42 thing is such a menace, because you talk about the perception of authoritarianism getting brought in through COVID response. And that's literally what is happening. We are using COVID as an excuse to harden the border, even though that's not safe. What we're doing by warehousing these people is not what you would want to be doing. You would want to send them along their way to their ultimate destination here so they can distance and,
document it, do an administrative exercise, and make sure that you have all the paperwork in place. But it doesn't need to be a carceral system, which I don't think she emphasized enough in this clip.
Yeah, I think we kind of hit the points there. That's the problem. And I think really the limitation here is this is how far we have to go, particularly, I mean, the idea like within the Democratic Party, like it's just that she has to stress that, equivalence or false equivalence or whatever you want to call it there, immediately after saying the correct thing, which is this is a bipartisan problem that goes back to us treating the border as a criminal, a carceral problem and not an administrative one for basically our lifetimes. And until we undo that and let people move through our border more easily, these problems are going to remain. And that's the truth that she embedded at the beginning of the clip there. And the emphasis afterwards is that's the Democratic Party. And, she's part of it. And ultimately, I love a lot of the stuff she's doing with regards to Puerto Rico self-determination and her agitation on things like the infrastructure bill. This is just one of the limitations. Until we have a base of power outside of this party, this is what you get with Democrats.
Exactly. I mean, to me, it again, these are extremely minor, I think, critiques. And I sent this clip. We don't even need to play it. But she did go on to talk about the underlying contributions of United States foreign policy that destabilized South America, which led to the exact conditions that we're seeing now. So that's a holistic perspective that you see in 40 people currently in power in the federal government. And I'm being generous there. So what we're talking about, though, is the limitations of electoral politics and being a part of the Democratic Party. And
right.
So she can be bumping up against that ceiling on a regular basis, and I think she does and deserves a lot of credit because it is a brave position, especially given what she experiences from the right wing and people on the dumb left as well. But then you watch her dancing this line and you're like, okay, that there is a lot more criticism that could be leveled here that would be effective as well.
And yeah, I think a broader problem is, I like some of the vocabulary she uses, but say American imperialism, right? But when you tie that to an outcome, like children being warehoused at the border and not a policy like Title 42, then I worry that it serves to naturalize these things. If this is just American imperialism, well, that's how are we going to undo American imperialism? Joe Biden could get rid of Title 42 right now, and we could start processing asylum seekers as we should be doing. And this problem would be go away. I mean, it wouldn't go away. Like I said, the bipartisan carceral approach to the border that has been going on for decades is ultimately what needs to go away. But this immediate crisis right now, with the people being held in these facilities, that is a policy choice.
So your critique, and I would think, again, we didn't see the full thing, so is more just the focus should be on Title 42 right now.
Yes, I think it should be on Title 42 and other immediate policies. I think the invoking, capitalism and imperialism, I think that stuff is good, but I think it's too superfluous. It doesn't do anything to Joe Biden, right? Or the party. So you need to Title 42 is white supremacy. Title 42 is imperialism. We can't go back and undo the wars that we've done in Central America or supported, right? Or death squads or whatever. We should undo some of the economic stuff we're doing. But right now, Title 42 just needs to be getting rid of.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for her having to dance this fine line, especially given the hate that she receives. But I think that's a fair critique. And I think we're not hearing enough from her about abolish ICE as we heard during the Trump years. And that's a fair critique. Again, where I think that this is all criticisms under, I think, an important umbrella of what she's fighting for is right, and she's on the right side of pretty much every issue. It's just this is how are we going to critique politicians who are operating within an elected position, because electoral politics has its limitations, and I think some of these critiques are what highlights that. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think she categorically needs to feel heat about this, but I don't think it needs to be the type of radioactive heat that I think comes with basically questioning the entire, her entire ability to deliver anything. Because I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know what there really is to say beyond that. this is bad. This is the Democratic Party saying, we don't believe you need more people, basically, and through her mouth. But ultimately, it's not going to be her heroic effort that changes that. It's going to be actually pressure and taking more power, and figure out how to leverage that power more effectively. And I don't think AOC is going to spearhead the socialist revolution. I never did. And so I think the people that focus so much her on a heroic or villainous individual kind of don't have the right understanding of the type of politics that are going to take her.
She couldn't, Matt. I mean, that's just like
exactly
the reality of electoral politics. I mean, that's so you know, I think that's an interesting, nuanced conversation for sure. All right, shall we head into the fun half?
Yeah, it's funny people that are saying I'm sounding like Jimmy Dore. Like that is absolutely. I think yeah, we can get into the fun, but that is funny to me.
Who's saying that?
Just chat.
On the chat. Oh yeah. Well, you know, come on, guys. Matt has that's not what Matt's saying at all. That's just not fair. So. And you can't critique is allowed, especially, and we praise and did praise Ocasio-Cortez yesterday or the day before for pushing Biden on the infrastructure package significantly. It's just that this critique needs to also be a push as opposed to kind of a let's not be drawing false equivalences here.